we now have billionaires saying, forget about hyperinflation. Super Bitcoinization is already here. So today I want to answer the question. A lot of people say, oh, but I need hyperinflation to see Bitcoin at $10 million. I disagree. And that is because of this new concept called super Bitcoinization that Balaji Srinivasan kind of made popular just this week with this tweet that's kind of broken the internet. So let's pull it up and let's have a look. Super Bitcoinization is already here. Normal inflation is 2% per year, or roughly 0.2% per month. Hyperinflation is 50% per month. But we're kind of somewhere in the middle, so we need a new term. Well, Balaji's coming up with something called super inflation. So let's kind of unravel this little rabbit hole and pull the thread on this ball of wool, because I think it's pretty interesting. So we can see Bitcoin is up 110 million% since October 2009. That is when the first USD BTC trade happened. It was at less than a cent. Today, 5,701 days later, we just hit $109,000. So when you work out the math, again, I love crunching the math. I love bringing out the calculator. We can see that's a monthly compounding rate of 10.41%. That's 10 times the normal inflation rate. Let's really zoom in here so you guys can see what I'm cooking with. So that means the US dollar has devalued against Bitcoin by 10.41% per month. That hits the 5% target we defined for super inflation. I love this term. It's a brilliant idea. I hope it catches on. Because I think we've still got some more maths to break down here, but I think a lot of the Keynesians are kind of saying, look, we don't have hyperinflation. Nothing to worry about. We're allowed to steal 2% of your money every single year. And if it's around that 2% target, you should just ignore all this. Don't worry about it. Yes, you're going to lose half of your money's value in 35 years, but that's so far away. Just forget about that. And people have just been lulled to sleep. They've just accepted that 2% inflation is fine and quote unquote normal, right? Just because a central banker in my neck of the realm, I believe it was an Australian central banker or a New Zealand central banker, just one day in the 1990s said, yeah, we're going to target 2% inflation. And the rest of the world was like, that's a great explanation for printing the money, debasing the money. We're just going to call it a 2% inflation target and say it's necessary for growing an economy. And now the world's just accepted it, and it's BS. It's absolutely BS. So let's crunch the numbers a little bit more. So yes, we haven't had hyperinflation yet, but superinflation against Bitcoin is already here. We've already got it. Bitcoin's been compounding by 10.4% per month against the US dollar. And when you run the maths, this is 110 million fold. Pretty insane returns when you crunch the numbers. And that is the price of fiat currency against Bitcoin, down by 99.58%. And it's only going to continue. And I think people need to kind of be aware of the very unique era that we are living in, because I don't think enough people have kind of appreciated just how foreign this idea of inflation is. A lot of people think it's normal, and it's just not. It's as simple as that. It is just not. When you really zoom out and you have a look at the inflation rate over, let's call it a 400-year chart, I think this chart beautifully highlights what I'm trying to illustrate for you guys today. The periods of blue here, this is inflation. The periods of red, this is deflation. So you can see for 400 years, we would see cycles of inflation followed by deflation, inflation, deflation. This is because our money was actually tied to something real, that is gold. What happened in early 1900s? Have a look at that. What did happen in the early 1900s? Why did all of a sudden those little pieces of green on the chart completely disappear? There's no deflation anymore. Prices are not allowed to naturally ebb and flow. And that is because for the first time in 7,000 years, we stopped using gold as money. We started using a form of money that can be easily printed and easily created. And I think people just need to understand and recognize that this is not normal. What we're seeing today is absolutely not normal. And when you really zoom out, it becomes apparent just how, trying to think of a politically correct term for this, how abnormal this is. Okay, because it is not normal that we have 2% inflation a year. That's a scam. That's how governments steal our money. I mean, have a look at the cost of living and how this has changed over the past 400 years. This is my favorite chart. Look at it explode in the 1900s. In particular, after that red line on the chart, 1971, after we left the gold standard officially. You can kind of see it creeping up there after we had the first central bank in 1913. But that is neither here nor there. What's going to come in the next 10 years? More volatility. I think you guys need to be prepared for more volatility. And again, I think the fact that we have Balaji talking about these things, it's worth taking note of. Again, the dude has turned $4.7 thousand into $250 million in 13 years. That's a hell of a feat. Yes, you can get lucky along the way buying some crap coins like he has, but you do need to make some intelligent investments along the way to, 1,000x your money? No, that's 100,000x on his money. That's huge. He's nearly got a 100,000x return on his money. It's pretty crazy to think about. Again, I think a lot of Bitcoiners are not prepared for that. They're not prepared for the 1,000x that I still think is ahead of us. And again, it's not just me. There's other very bullish people in Bitcoin like British Hodl, Peter Dunworth. Again, I've been teasing it. That interview's coming. Maybe tomorrow. Maybe the day after. We'll see. It's not too far away. But again, I think you guys should be getting prepared for Bitcoin and the 1,000x that I think is still ahead of us. Again, a lot of people have asked me for this. They say, Luke, what do I do when Bitcoin's at 100,000 or $1 million a coin? I've always said you sell your Bitcoin, you take some profits, right? But I've always kind of been wrong when I say that. Because obviously, the best thing you should do, you should never sell your Bitcoin. You borrow against your Bitcoin. And then a lot of people will say, oh, but Luke, I don't want to use BlockFi, Celsius, or FTX. All the companies that we were shitting on in 2022. We called them out. Wasn't popular to be anti-BlockFi, Celsius, or FTX in 2022. Absolutely not. Because there's very little alternatives. Well, now there is actually an alternative. And again, a little bit of an announcement here. Guys, I got a solution to that problem, and that is FIREFISH. FIREFISH is a fully backed, there's no rehypothecation going on this platform. They're a peer-to-peer platform that allows you to borrow and lend your Bitcoin. If you do want to learn more about FIREFISH, the co-founder, Igor, was just on the Stefan Livera podcast. Again, Stefan is a hardcore Bitcoin maximalist. He's far more technically savvy than myself. So if you do want to learn more about FIREFISH and what they're doing over there, I think that's an incredible product. I encourage you to go watch that interview and just check out the platform today. Again, I've partnered up with them because I think it's a much needed product, and you guys can get 30% off the fees on your first loan if you use a promo code Luke. It's capital letters Luke. It rhymes with puke. It's very easy to remember, and it is linked down below. So again, hit the link down below and check it out if you do want to use FIREFISH to borrow against your Bitcoin this bull run. Again, I always tell you guys, don't sell your Bitcoin. Never sell your Bitcoin. Michael Saylor says it himself. Never sell your Bitcoin. You should never be paying taxes. This is why I've partnered up with FIREFISH. I think they're great. All Night High to my man in the chat has already put the specific link for you guys to use. So 100% check it out. Again, you don't need to use these risky platforms that don't tell you where the yield is coming from. That is because they're rehypothecating your Bitcoin. There's scams out there. I am not going to Montana, sadly, shredded at 60. All Night Hide is going to be off the internet for 2 months. We're going to miss you in the live chat, my friend. I don't think you've missed one in the past year. Yeah, and this is, again, my friends, we call this, like I hope it doesn't sound like we're joking when we say fiat money whether it's euros, dollars, Australian cuckbucks, or even the Peruvian soles. We call them fun tokens or fiat enslavement tokens. That's what they are. To McLovin's comment in the chat, fiat is an enslavement, financial enslavement. Bitcoin is financial freedom. Congratulations to all of the 499 of you guys who realized that today and early, if you're watching this stream. Yeah, I never plan to stream at the same time as my friends over there at Simply Bitcoin, but I've got a massage that I'm 27 minutes late for that I better get a little bit of a run on for. I'm getting the eyes right now as we speak. So I got to bounce. I got a massage. With all that said, guys, I am super bullish. Thank you to the guys at Simply Bitcoin. That's funny. And again, if you want to know just how bullish me, myself, Peter Dunworth, and British Hodl are, just make sure you subscribe to the channel so you're notified when that interview drops. It's going to be huge. It's incredibly bullish. And I don't want you guys to miss it. So do that if you want to see it when it drops. And with all that said, guys, I'm going to see you guys in the next live stream. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.